It's 2026 and everyone is locked in on how to make this the most productive year yet. And in our profession, the easiest way to gauge if you had a productive day is by asking whether or not you closed anything. In my opinion, though, that's one of the fastest ways to burn yourself out, even if you're doing the right things. In today's episode, I want to lay out a framework that I coach new reps on and that I use myself that focuses on things that I can control. So let's get into it. Before we dive into the framework, I want to talk a little bit about why reps end up misjudging their days. And I think it's because they fall into the trap of only measuring success by deals won or revenue generated instead of focusing on the things that they can control. Additionally, if that's your metric of success, then one bad call or one deal going south can ruin your entire day. In my opinion, I think that sales is momentum based, and so it makes more sense to focus on the activity and the inputs. Additionally, different stages of the sales process require different elements. And so you can't judge every day based on the same exact criteria. That's why I teach reps this framework. The framework is create, advance, close. So every sales activity or every sales call should fit into one of those buckets. And a good call means that you've made meaningful progress in at least one of them. You don't need to make progress in all three to have a successful sales call. Let's deep dive into the three though. Create is our first one. This means you have generated some sort of new opportunity or added an opportunity to your pipeline. Activities or calls that fit into this category would be like cold calls, email, LinkedIn outreach. If you're out networking and established a new connection, or like I do, I attend trade shows, all of these are activities that can create new leads or new opportunities. So if we're using create as our benchmark for a successful call, then we would be looking for an outcome like a new prospect or a new lead being added to the pipeline, a first call being booked, or some conversation being initiated. In my opinion, early career reps should be living here. If you have either a role or a territory that is prospecting heavy, then this is what your bread and butter is. You want to be trying to create as many opportunities as possible to put into the top of your sales funnel that you can then later work on converting. And remember, this stage is all about inputs, not wins. We're focusing on putting opportunity into the pipeline, not necessarily whether or not you close that opportunity. Our second criteria is advance. This is any call or activity that moves an existing deal one step forward. This could be a discovery call, maybe a follow-up call that has commitments. If you do any sort of objection handling that moves a prospect from hesitant to committed, or if you're in a role where you need to add additional stakeholders or get additional sign-offs, if you're getting additional people engaged in the conversation, all of this is advancing opportunity. Now, here's a key distinction when it comes to advancing opportunity. Interest does not equal advancement. Commitments do. So just because a prospect tells you that they're interested, everyone's interested. In this stage, what we're looking for is commitments. So it's not uncommon for deals to fall apart in this stage, but quite frankly, that might be a good thing, because it means that you can either go back to your C phase and focus on creating new opportunities, or focus on your other advancement opportunities, and at least now you're not wasting time. Even getting a no is better, because instead of spinning your wheels trying to get an interested prospect to commit, at least now you have a no and you can focus on your other opportunities. Which brings us to our last criteria, C, which is close. This is converting opportunities into revenue. In this stage, we're talking about orders being submitted. This is going to be a controversial take, but I think in the close stage, we can also include any negotiations that include a verbal commitment. That might be a hot take, because there's definitely going to be some people who say a verbal commitment doesn't count, but I'm willing to include it in this stage. If you get a verbal commitment from your buyer that they are going to purchase, we'll include that in the close category. And of course, if you're sending contracts or you're getting DocuSign packets back, that's the gold standard. Before we move on to how to put this all together, I want to make sure that we understand that closing on calls is probably the most rare outcome out of all three. And that's normal. You're not going to close on every call. That's why we have the other two categories. So let's put this all together on how you score a call or an entire day. If you can answer yes to one or more of those categories, then that was a successful sales call. Conversely, if you had a great conversation with somebody, but it didn't, then that is not a successful sales call. Don't mistake movement for progress. And what that means is you can have a lot of great conversations. You can talk to a lot of people who are interested. But if you are not fulfilling one of those three categories, then was it really a productive call? Last rule of thumb when it comes to this Create, Advance, Close CAC framework. If you've been in role less than 9 months, my recommendation is that you spend the majority of your efforts on creating new opportunities. As you gain a little bit of tenure, naturally you're going to transition to focusing on advancing those opportunities through your sales process. And the more tenured, more senior reps, my intuition is that most of your time is going to be spent on closing or advancing deals. I think this framework will also help you gain that tenure because it's going to prevent burnout. If all you're doing is focusing on whether you've generated revenue or closed a deal on every call, which remember I said that was the most rare part, it doesn't set the right expectation for how a sales call goes. You see, the CAC framework is going to help keep you focused on the things you can control. And by focusing on controlling what you can control, not getting emotional about deals, and building consistency and confidence, well, that reinforces long-term career thinking. We want every rep in it for the long game. Careers are built by stacking good days, not perfect ones. Good calls, not perfect ones. If this framework helped you to rethink or reconceptualize how you judge your days, like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you next time here in the Sales Armory. Thank you.